Alright, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about which databases to use, how to critically think about which ones you should be looking at. So again, starting at your high school homepage, hit Departments, Library, Book Catalog and Databases, Online Databases. And so you'll get to your screen that you saw before that has all the databases linked inside various subjects, which is really helpful because a giant list of databases would probably be overwhelming, but now you can look at this and decide, all right, which ones go along with my topic? So say I wanted to write an essay about vaccines. I've heard a lot in the news about a possible connection with autism. Scientists are going back and forth. There's a lot of stuff on social media, and I'm just curious to find out if there's any science behind that. So looking at these titles, I want to think about which ones might give me good information to be able to develop an educated view on this topic. So the first thing I want to probably go to is my encyclopedia. So I have two options here. Go to Britannica. And you'll see that it says I need a username and password. So I'll go back to here, and you'll see where it says these things right here. So I'll type in Seaford HS, and I'll copy this password so that I can get in. Okay, and now it gives me these three options. I'm going to hit high school and go to my search bar. And so here we go. Just like every other database, they give you a long list of possible things ranging in specificity. I'll choose our first one here because I want to get just a general rundown of what vaccines are about. So I'll look through. We have some history stuff here, effectiveness, vaccine types. So as I learn more and more about vaccines, I might want to be specific about the rubella one or the mumps one, things like that. I want to notice that I have all of these little blue links here, which will lead me to other pages. They'll become more and more helpful as I narrow down what I want to think about. And before we go, I want to point out how every database has all these different little links up here to help you out. You can make the font bigger, you can make it smaller, you can listen.
Introduction. Vaccine, suspension of weakened, killed, or fragmented microorganisms are...
So if reading along helps you, you can pick that. It gives you a citation option, so again, you know exactly what to copy-paste into your works cited. You can print it, you can favorite it, you can send the link wherever it is you need to keep track of all these documents. So that's one. So I went to my encyclopedia. I have a pretty good idea about what vaccines are and the history and all that. So now I'm going back. Where else can I go to find more information? So my eye is drawn right to health and physical education. Vaccines are all about preventing diseases, so that seems like a pretty good place to go. So I'll hit this. Okay, and so now I get to this home page right here. So I'll go to my search bar, and I'll type in vaccines, just like I did last time. But unlike with the encyclopedia that gave me pretty much one major source about what vaccines are in general, this is giving me over 100,000 sources. That's overwhelming. That's way too much. So now I know that I have to be more specific in what I'm searching. So as I said before, I'm curious to see if there is a correlation or a connection between those two things. So I'm going to include that in my search bar. Please note that I didn't write in the search bar, do vaccines cause autism, a full question, because the search bar doesn't really care about those individual little words. In fact, it's going to search for every single one of those words, which isn't particularly helpful to you. So really only put in your major keywords into this search bar. So now it's been limited down to about 800, which is still a lot, but I can organize it down to individual things, and that is a lot more doable than what we had before. So as I scroll down through these academic journals, which is pretty much where I want to start with things that have been published by scientists. I'm noticing that a lot of them are allowing me to download the PDF directly, which is really helpful if I want to keep a folder of possible sources. But some of them just have a save option, and that's fine because a lot of these databases will allow you to save to a folder. And so that's right here under more. Okay, but it's always good to print these things out in case something goes wrong and you just can't find that folder again. But it's helpful in the meantime. So I'm looking and I have all these different things, but it's still a lot, right? This is still a pretty big number. Now with this particular topic, I probably don't want sources from 10 years ago. This is a pretty recent thing. Scientists are working on it right now. So I probably want to narrow this down to something from, say, the past year. The past week might be too much. Science takes a while. So now I only have 23, which is pretty helpful. This is much more doable. I can look through these. And I'm noticing also that the titles of these pages are much more modern than what we had before when it was all 800 possible things. I'm seeing references to Google. I'm seeing references to fake news, which is a really new phrase that we've been using. Pseudoscience, medical misinformation. These are, anti-vaxxer. These are new phrases that have come up, so I can really tell that this might get to the root of what I'm going for. And the last thing I want to show you on this particular database is this really cool topic finder down here on the home page. So sometimes I might not know what keywords I even want to use for my topic. I might just have vaccines. So if I use the topic finder, I type that in there, I get this enormous tile board of possible subset categories that I might not have thought about before. And I can click on, oh, women's health. Is this, specific to women in some way? And I can look, the HPV infection. I can look at those kind of vaccines. Maybe that will be more interesting or more intense than what I was looking at before. What if I want to look at influenza? That has a lot of subcategories. The flu can be a really big deal, especially because, we never seem to know if it's going to hit or not. So I can look at all that kind of stuff from my tiles. If I don't like tiles, I can go to a wheel. You can decide how you want to look at these things. And this can really help you narrow down your topic to a specific topic you might not have known existed before looking into it from here. So that's another database that you can use. So we'll go back to our main online databases section. And let's say the last thing I want to look at is possibly science. Right, we know vaccines have to do with science, so this could be a good place to go as well. This section has loads and loads of databases for you to cycle through. Let's decide to use ProQuest. Again, we know that we have a username and password that we'll have to fill in once we get there. So I'll just remember Seaford HS, and I'll copy that password. And I'll click on ProQuest. And I'll type that in for the login. And then here we are at ProQuest with a very similar situation as other databases. So the last thing I want to point out about databases is how you can make your keywords work even more for you. So I'll start with what I had narrowed down to before. And I want to add in this idea that maybe social media is the real reason why everyone seems to think these two things have a correlation. So I'll add those two keywords in there and see what shows up in my sources. So you see all these little highlights that show where your keywords are showing up. But what I'm noticing is that they take the words individually. So here we have just the regular media, and here we have just the word social. And so it's not really interpreting social media the way I want it to, because it's just taking these two words individually. So the way I can solve that problem is I can put the two words in quotations. And this works for Google too. So I hit that. And now every source that I see over here is going to have social media together. So here's how I'm going to find sources that talk about Facebook or Instagram or any of those other pieces of social media that might be working to create an idea of vaccines and autism having some sort of correlation. And so that will help me find sources that are better for me. And just as with the other databases, I can decide, do I want a journal? Do I want a book? Do I want a newspaper? Do I want it within the last 12 months, the last 5 years? Really don't hit this for most topics. You want the newest, freshest things. You can narrow it down by subject individually, right? We even have social networks here. We can narrow it down to document type. All right, so you have lots of options and ways to narrow down what it is you want to talk about. And then as before, There's always some sort of citation button, so you can copy paste exactly what you need to make sure that you have access to those, email, save, print, all of that. All right.